still going? Okay, now it's live. We are now live.
Greetings. So happy you can join us, and so happy for your perseverance and willingness to put up with our technical challenges and other personnel challenges. I am Dr. Linda James Myers, and I am your moderator today, along with my wonderful panelists who are going to be with us today. And as you know, this is the Association of Black Psychologists creating Zola Mondays. If there was any time in human history we needed Zola, it would be now. Zola, as you know, is that love, that perseverance, the um, protection and the proliferation of health that we use to ignite that healing spirit, healing power. And so we're happy to be with you today. I am a past president of the Association of Black Psychologists, as well as Elder of Elders Emeritus, and many, many other roles, but so happy to be here because our mission at the association, with the association, is so, so, so important to the upliftment of humanity. So we're happy you joined us and really appreciate your perseverance and patience. I'm going to let my other panelists introduce themselves.
Well, Jojo, you want me to go first?
Yes.
I will jump in there. My name is Harvey Linder. I'm a psychologist in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I've been involved with ABPSI for a long time, and I've had many roles in ABPSI. I used to be a regional representative, and I helped to found the Minnesota chapter. I'm now a member of the ABPSI Ethics Committee, and I'm happy to be part of this because I like the idea of us having some kind of discourse with the membership. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. I'm going to let Jojo introduce herself.
Thank you. Yes. Age before beauty. No, I'm just playing. I'm just okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Hickson.
Can't argue with that.
I'm the current chair of the DC Association of Black Psychologists, as well as public relations for the National Association of Black Psychologists, and like Nana Linda and Dr. Hart Linder. I hold a number of different roles in the organization, but I'm really excited about this conversation. This is a good question. Somebody just put a question in the chat, and I have the same question.
Let's go for that.
So we want to show the question. Pierre coming in.
How are you guys identifying and neutralizing the boule? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Especially those who may have infiltrated ABPSI.
I have a lot to say about that.
Oh, I don't know. Do you want to talk about this? Well, I appreciate the question. Pierre, I really appreciate the question because we know COINTELPRO is alive and well. And if you don't know what COINTELPRO is, it was instituted a few presidents ago, where the powers that be, the leadership, was concerned that Black people may come to their senses and unite, particularly internationally. And therefore, there was a need, they thought, to make sure that organizations would not be successful in achieving their mission and their goals. And as a consequence, they deliberately put people in these organizations, infiltrators, if you will, to really carry out that mission. So I appreciate the question, and I'm going to turn it over to my fellow panelists. I have opinions about this, but I'll let.
So I want to respond to this as diplomatically as I can, because one of the chapter members, a new chapter member in ABPSI DC chapter, asked us, how are we selecting members, right? If they have money and they fill out the application, can they just join? The answer is no. You have to have a sponsor to join the DC chapter at least, right? So you have to be vetted. That means that not just anybody can join the ABPSI. We get a lot of comments. But I think this is the point of creating Zola Mondays, right? The fact that we're doing consciousness raising work, right? Because all skin folk ain't your kinfolk. And that doesn't mean that we're going to deny people who are seeking community, who are seeking representation, whether they are a mental health professional, community member, or social justice advocate, right? As long as they are willing to do the work and willing to engage in this consciousness raising, I think they have a place in ABPSI. And we also have to give grace. And I think we talk about this all the time on ABPSI, right? That people are arriving to this organization at different levels of Black identity development, right? And so there might be some people who might be the boule, right? And then maybe they just need a few years in organization to get themselves together, right? And there might be some people who are a year into the organization asking questions of the organization that we've already answered for 56 years plus. We just gonna give them a little bit more time to get their act together and do their homework. But no, we do not just accept any member into the organization. They have to be vetted. So yeah, that's my response as the chair of the DC ABSI. I am noticing some comments, so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Linder, and then I'll read out the comments on Instagram.
Well, what Jojo said may be true of the DC chapter, but and this is true of the Minnesota chapter, and I think other chapters around the country may have the same situation as well. Is that we don't really screen the people who want to join. We're pretty open about who can join our organization. We're also conscious of the fact that many of us, if we haven't been involved in ABSI or some similar organization that has done some consciousness raising, we expect that people will come into either come into the organization with various levels of consciousness, and that it doesn't surprise us that many of us come with minds that have been colonized, because that's what our background has been. And so our job is to help people through that journey from having the colonized mind to reaching a different level of consciousness. So I'm not sure I really understand what the question is about. I mean, if it's a concern that we may be infiltrated by people who don't share our consciousness.
Let's ask what he meant by the boule.
Is it possible to do that, Jojo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did ask that individual to elaborate on what they mean by the boule. So let me just check the comments really quickly. This brother has a lot to say. He said, let me see. Okay. First, to your point earlier, Dr. Linder, ethics, both professional and personal, are critical in this day and time. Ashe. Someone said DC needs a healing. Shout out to Dr. Mark Bolden in DC ABSI / Howard University. Clocky. Is Boule an anti-Black organization, as Steve Coakley said, or another civic organization? I think that when this person said Boule, they were talking about like that talented 10th, but I'm not sure if they defined it. If you could tell us what you mean exactly by the boule, that would be great. But this other person said, every HBCU president who is male is a member. Black male members of Congress are members of boule. I worked with your organization's lawyer that was boule. See the contradiction within. Oh, they said the boule is a secret society.
Okay, so the boule I'm familiar with is basically a male organization. It would be considered in this social context the Black male elite in power positions in most communities. I don't know if they're secret, but I guess they may think if they are, then they're doing a good job. People know about them and have known for decades. But I took it to mean, I generalized. I didn't take it to mean them in particular, but I actually took it to mean there are people who infiltrate organizations with the express purpose of diminishing its capacity to be successful. Whether that be someone from the boule or somewhere else, I wasn't speaking to, but I do know historically that's been the case. And it will continue to be the case in terms of what we as an organization do about that. I think the reality is that we are an inclusive organization. It's actually, we have, I think it was Malana Karenga who was clear about Black psychology having 3 schools of thought: the traditional school, which is mainstream in its orientation, the reformist school, who sees the problem with the mainstream traditional, but doesn't really want to change it at an essential level, but maybe make it look a little better, buff it up. Then the radical school, which is those who have decided that mainstream Euro-Western psychology doesn't really understand mental health, never has, never demonstrated it, certainly can't speak to it in a way that can uplift all of humanity. So that is considered the radical school. And I think we have members who fit or are part of all schools of thought, all three schools of thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I'm learning quickly as a chair. And I knew this before in other leadership positions, right? That there are a lot of conflicting values within the same organization, right? And we have to try to balance and honor each of those varying perspectives, whether that's intergenerational differences or things like that. We have a question from my dad. My dad said, my actual dad is watching. He said, I would like to know, does your organization cater towards veterans, African American veterans? That's a pretty broad question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand. Catered towards?
Do we have like any programming for veterans? Things like that. And I don't think we have anything specific. But we're always looking for people to come in and do that work. You don't have to be a psychologist to join us. So
It's also true that we have many programs, and all the programs we do have are open to everybody. Certainly veterans would be a population that we'd want to attend to. And I imagine we do have veterans participating. In fact, I know we have had in the past and probably do have today veterans who participate in much of our programming, but no programming specifically targeting that population at this time.
yeah, well, that's something we can develop for sure.
Well, if we have the people who, who are interested in developing it, I mean, we basically do two things. We try to cater to people who want to become Black mental health professionals, or whether they're psychologists or allied professions. And we cater to people who want to help build a stronger, healthier Black community, whether they're psychologists or not. And so those are the kind of people that we're interested in having as part of the organization. But I don't know why we would filter out others. If we want people who have who share in our joint mission, and that mission is to build a stronger, healthier Black community that can build a stronger, healthier world community. And if people are interested in that, then we're interested in working with them. If people are interested in trying to sabotage that, then we're just aware that their consciousness hasn't developed to the stage where they understand what's better for the future of the world. And we are about consciousness raising, and so we expect that we're going to have people who don't have that level of consciousness yet, and our job is to help them realize it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the real issue at some level is values. The social context within which we find ourselves holds the predominant cultural worldview, and your Western model holds values for materialism, individualism, competition, exploitation, the privilege of the wealthy elite. Those are not values that we hold as an organization. We hold high values for truth and justice and righteousness and knowledge, wisdom and understanding. So sometimes those two sets of values are competing. And within an association, I think by and large, we have favored the latter set of values because those are the values that are implicitly implied with our mission statement. But I'm flecting back here to Pierre's explanation about his question. He says there are so many Black NGOs, but I am concerned about the CONTELPRO angle. I fear our most pivotal societal pillars may be already compromised outside of ABSI, of course. That's a reasonable fear. I think the reason we can assume it's a reasonable fear is because as we look at the leadership today and how things are unfolding today, where white supremacy is so much straight in your face and people aren't hiding or pretending anymore to try to make this a true democracy, even if they know what democracy would really mean based on their value system. We have good reason to be leery of a social context, I believe, as Dr. Harvey was saying earlier on, that we've been all mis-socialized to buy into a reality that will compromise our integrity, our authenticity, and our moral standing as people who are interested in truth and justice and righteousness. So as an organization, I think for me, what's important isn't so much that those people do exist, probably have been effective in some ways that I probably could identify, but won't on this broadcast. But the real point for me is, as an organization, our principles, our mission, our values are things that I hold dearly and support dearly. And I think the vast majority of the association membership does as well. Otherwise, they would not continue to be members.
But I would say that when I came into the organization, I didn't particularly hold African-centered values. I came up in a Western-oriented education. I went to a predominantly white higher educational institution. I came in with traditional American values, and when I first encountered this African-centered psychology, I was skeptical of it. But as I learned more about it, then that skepticism about my own people and my own origins went away and was replaced by what I think is a more rightful skepticism of this Western environment we've been acculturated into. And I'm hopefully that kind of awakening of awareness can happen for others as well.
Yeah, and I think I love that you all pointed out like that difference, or I guess the harmony between values and morals, because just because we have members within ABSI, that doesn't mean that they have the most well-intentioned, right? Just because they're Black, that doesn't mean that they're going to be a good person. So we have to manage our expectations, right? And when they say bully, I'm thinking about that this whole notion of the talented 10th and the exceptional Black person, right? Which I actually despise, because it's like, what about the mediocre Black folks? They don't deserve love. Like, what if they're not exceptional? And it's interesting because I was just talking to my one of my externs about it. She goes to Howard, and she would say she's a doctoral student, and she works in their counseling center. And she was saying the amount of scholars, Black scholars that come in that might have a different socioeconomic background than maybe those talented 10th or those Jack and Jill kind of people, they're having a hard time adjusting. Even though they are Black, they're at an HBCU, they haven't found their people yet, because a lot of those people come from money. So yeah, I think it's really about consciousness, about morals and values and things like that. And I'm seeing a lot of that clashing now, as people are being pressured to not talk about certain issues, right? Or to not be woke, quote unquote.
I'm sorry, I'm confused a bit by which are you saying that this young woman was saying at Howard, we don't find that social elitism and classism?
No, she was saying she's seeing it there, that some of her students are coming to her in the counseling center because they're experiencing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So these are the population who are not a member of that social elite, Black social elite, so-called.
Exactly.
Okay. That's sad, but again, at the crossroads, this society is at the crossroads. And I think the crossroads is concerning values and morals and spiritual acumen. Not Republican, not rich or poor, not highly educated. It really has to do with, what do you stand for? If you're for a materialist society that is based on the exploitation and of other people, and look out for yourself and what you can get, to hell with everybody else, then those values are problematic. Mm-hmm. But they also let us know that those people who hold those values have the appearance of having, what can we say, very good life. I'm doing air quotes with good, meaning, they can buy anything, including people. They can control so many things. But I think the reality is, in the larger social context, it is those elites, leaders that have brought humanity and this country in particular to the brink of destruction. They were in leadership when all the things came down, the holes in the ozone, the exploitation of African people, the stealing of Native American lands, the control of the entire world under values that maybe many in the West of the world don't really hold. Certainly indigenous people tended not to hold. So I think that to the extent we're at the crossroads, are you going to take and stand for truth and justice and righteousness and equality? Or are you going to stand for more money, more material goods at the cost of anything and everything? You don't care. Because that's what it's come down to, as near as I can see. And I think what has clouded things is that because in this social context, we have been so clearly miseducated and socially engineered, even the people we would count on, say news reporters or whomever, to cut to the chase and help us understand what's going on, we get stuck at that superficial level. Oh, you're a Democrat. Oh, you're a Republican. Oh, you're Black, or you're white, or you're this, or you're that. And indeed, all those demarcations can be made. But as you suggested just a few minutes ago, Dr. Jonisha, what really counts isn't how you appear. What do you stand for? What do you do? What are you holding up? What are you fighting for? And unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way that just because you're Black, just because you're of African ancestry, or just because you're anything else, all is in everything. All is in everything. There's good in everything. There's bad in everything. So we have to somehow dispel the labeling at a superficial level and cut to the chase. What are your values? What are your morals? What is your spiritual acumen? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to.
I understand the confusion. I grew up around people who believed, and I believed, that the way for Black people to be successful was to be more like white people, and it comes from that concept of if you want to be successful, you have to be like successful people. And you look around and you say, well, who are the successful people and what are they like? And so you want to like imitate that model of success, and it's like you don't realize that that model is what is destroying us. And that's what the consciousness raising is about. It's coming to an understanding of what is, success, not just for the individual, but what is success for the people of the world. What is success for the people around you? It's not how do you lift yourself up above everybody else. It's how do you lift everyone up so that we're all uplifted, as opposed to trying to be better than everyone else.
Well, so I think as psychologists, as we break down that need to be better than, it's coming from an insecurity. It's coming from a fearfulness, and the idea that I can be successful and everybody else can die or be killed or starved or whatever is ridiculous. Because whatever I do, whatever I experience is we're all interconnected, we're all interrelated, we're all interdependent. So that at the end of the day, until we get clarity about who we really are as human spirit beings, as interrelated and interdependent, as connected to those who came before, those who come after, the community, nature, until we get to that understanding, it's going to be very hard for us to be on the right side of history. I do see, though, Dr. Jojo, that there's another question about conscious men disrupting the misogyny, Black male culture, and the Amharic religions thrown in your face. I don't know how to pivot from that. So do we want to move to that question?
Yeah, I was going to mention that we have a lot of commentary on Instagram as well, but definitely want to address that question. So I'll read it again for y'all. How do conscious men disrupt the misogyny in Black male culture? I get the Abrahamic religions thrown in my face often. I don't know how to pivot from that.
So were the comments that you said are in the other venues, are they related to what we just talked about, or are they different?
They're kind of related. So there's a comment that Black folks need to be talking about capitalism and the effects it has on our communities, our homes, and our personal well-being. So long as we keep embracing the colonizers' ways, we will continue to be fighting an uphill battle. Then someone else, Dr. Rogers, offered Ma'at Nguzo Saba articulated value systems, and then some discussion around that.
Well, definitely what we have been talking about is the necessity of really breaking through capitalism. We were not using that term necessarily, but that's exactly what we're talking about, and we totally agree with you. Same is true in terms of Ma'at and those values, those who came before us, who brought clarity to human condition and human aspiration that we still don't see necessarily in the current social context. So just to acknowledge those comments and thank you for them. By the way, I should intervene here just to say, we're so happy this conversation is going this way because, as you know, if you saw our publicity, we were headed for a different conversation, and it turns out that the person we were relying on to kind of be the principal isn't available today. So we're happy that you all have jumped in the conversation and taken the lead in terms of what we should be focusing on and talking about. It's appreciated. So shall we go to conscious men?
Yeah, I'd like to address that a little bit. You know, understanding who you are as a man, as a male, involves understanding, the balance in the cosmos, and that everything in the cosmos, is seeking balance, and that that male female component is one of those components that is part of the balance in the universe. It's sort of like they're two poles of a magnet. There's like a north pole and a south pole. It's like you can't have a magnet without both poles, and you can't have gendered reproduction without both poles. And so males and females are just as important to one another as life itself. And so if you understand that, you don't get caught up into looking at the dominance of one over the other, because they are both equally important.
I think the question is a really important question, and I like the fact you brought in the Abrahamic religions, often thrown in your face, I guess, to justify the misogyny, the Black male culture. And unfortunately, if that's what is happening, we're talking about a population then not unlike the larger population, which is people who don't know their history, because the roots of all Abrahamic religions come back to ancient Nubia Kemet and to the belief system that emerged there, where women were seen as primary. That's why we have a Ma'at, the embodiment of truth, justice, and righteousness, and Hether, who carried the coffin or the tomb, let's say, of Heru. So people who don't know the history and pick up or don't go back and look at the roots of their religious history oftentimes pick it up once it's shifted to the misogynistic, male-dominant exclusion of female orientation. And I think if you're looking for a pivot, that's how I'd pivot. I'd say, oh, that's interesting, because be it Christianity, Islam, whatever, early on, as we look at the early writings from which both of those emerged, women were highly regarded. In fact, women were seen as primary in terms of bringing forth spirit. So that might be a way to pivot and extend and expand the conversation so that the insecurity and fear, I think, that's behind misogyny is hopefully erased, because we can move to a consciousness that allows us to see, much like Dr. Lindner was describing, that the duality, the gender factor, as Tahuti said, is essential to all of life and life processes. And when you love you as a Black man or as a Black woman, then you will be able to extend that love to your complement, and are happy to do so, and do everything you can to make sure that that insecurity that is the foundation for the emergence of misogyny, of being over women, of demeaning women, it can be healed and replaced by a sense of security and well-being. Because most Black women, or women I know, love Black men. They do. That's just who we are and who we'll probably always be. And sometimes we have not been so good at making sure they live up to being their best self. We have oftentimes let them be less than their best self. So as mothers, as sisters, of aunties, as lovers, of whomever, we want to hold ourselves as Black women to the highest standards so we can help support the Black male, and then it becomes a reciprocal relationship, doesn't it? I'm going to hold you to your highest standard, and I'm going to hold myself to my highest standard, and vice versa.
If we look at religious teachings, sometimes the question is that, are we looking back far enough? If we're just looking at, those teachings, and we're not looking at, well, where did those teachings come from? What were they intended to pass down to us? Then, we're not seeing the whole picture, because the reality is that humanity cannot exist without both male and female components together. And so it would be silly for us as males to think that somehow we are superior.
I wanted to read some of the comments in the chat. Somebody said male, female, duality of opposites, Maya and Tahuti. I like to think about them as being complementary. So somebody said, I love you, Dr. Myers. Thank you for all your work. Evan, one of our student scholars out of the Morehouse chapter of ABSI, they're doing amazing work over there in Spelman. He says Dr. Michael Eric Dyson has that book called Why I Love Black Women. Maybe all Black men should read that. It's Why I Love Black Women. That's a good one. Thanks, Evan. And then there's a follow-up question, Nana Linda. I don't know if y'all want to take it. It says, what if they don't respect anthropological and psychological growth, especially from Black institutions?
See, who is they? What if they don't? If Black men don't respect anthropological and psychological growth at Black institutions? I think that again, it comes down to that crossroads of values, doesn't it? Values, morals, and spiritual acumen. Because if I am at an institution of higher education, I think you're probably referring to a Black institution of higher education, and I don't respect knowledge, be it anthropological or psychological, and growth, then that's a problem. That's a serious problem. So I think, again, we're in a bad position in the sense that right now it looks as though the tendency is for people to settle for less than truth. and to not respect what is true oftentimes. But I think we have to stand and we have to speak for that which is true and just and righteous. And when we do that, it's almost like you have to call it out for what it is in the kind, respectful way. But if we don't, then that misinformation, that disrespect builds upon itself. And over time, we now let it disrupt the entire community and collective, and we can ill afford that. So the only thing that we have that we can stand on is truth. And it doesn't matter who's in what position being disrespectful. We have to stand for what is true and call it out to the best of our ability. Try to do it in a kind way.
We have another comment. Oh Lord. Someone said, even Blacks, I hate that, even Black people attending PWIs were raised in the same high schools in K-12 as students attending HBCUs. The education is more similar than different. And I agree. We often talk about, every time we're going to come back to consciousness at Creating Zola Mondays, right? And we know that we have a conversation about how the education system is very much so an apparatus of capitalism, imperialism, racism, all the things, right? So it's just a tool of socializing people, our people, to be an ideal American citizen. So I appreciate that. Do either of you want to respond to that? Even Black
people? Education doesn't stop with, elementary, high school, junior high school, your college experience, whether it's at a PWI or, an HBCU. Your education cannot stop there. I mean, what you learn in elementary and junior high school and even in college is you learn how to learn. And once what you're supposed to be doing with that learning is continuing to learn. The education that, when you get that little degree, I got my little degree, I got, my PhD. It's like, it's after I got my PhD that I really began learning, because it was, after I got my PhD that I got more involved in organizations like ABSI and could open my mind to what I didn't know and what I still don't know. And so I'm not sure what people are referencing when they talk about not respecting anthropological or psychological growth. I mean, you have to look at what is known thus far. What did we know in the past? What do we still not yet know? What do we still have yet to discover? That's what your education is supposed to be preparing you to do. But it doesn't stop when you finish your HBCU or your PWI. It continues. We are still learning. We do this program because we want to continue learning, and we want to continue learning with you. And by sharing your questions and sharing your thinking process and sharing our thinking process with you, that is a part of our ongoing learning.
It seems that the role of formal education in any society, the ultimate role by those who legislate how the educational system is going to be structured and what's going to be taught, is to socialize the members of the society into a particular worldview, way of thinking, behaving, that will perpetuate the status quo. Be it a PWI or HBCU, we see that there's a convergence there. We haven't seen en masse within the institutional structure any major step aside from the dominant culture's socialization or missocialization. We're beginning to see it because we're beginning to realize that at this juncture, true education will do what Dr. Harvey suggests, which is teach you a love of knowledge and wisdom and understanding, and that's something that's ongoing, and that love of learning should be a driver. That's not what we're taught. by any formal educational system I'm familiar with in this social context, be it an HBCU or PWI. There may be some courses at some of each where that happens, but for the most part, that's not, most people aren't in school to get knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. By the time they get out of third grade, they realize, this, there may be no knowledge, wisdom, or understanding here, but I need to get these markers so I can move on and do what I want to do with my life. So I think the person who's lucky enough to find an institution where they're supported and that kind of love of learning is being proffered and the kinds of values that are going to be sustainable for all of humanity are taught and supported, is that's the thing that we have to create. That's what we're here to help us move toward, creating the kind of education that allow human beings to realize their highest potential, reach the highest stages of human development.
Yes, Linda, you're right. There are two kinds of education. There's one kind of education that prepares you to get a job and make money, get paid to do some journeyman task, whether that's being a doctor or a dentist or a mechanic or an engineer or a stock investor. But that's training drones to fulfill a role. And if that's what you're looking for in your education, then there's ways that education will provide that. And yes, you can make a lot of money and drive a nice car and live in a nice house. But it doesn't make you a better person, and it doesn't make this a better world. There's another function of education, and that is to help us learn how to make the world a better place. And that education doesn't stop when you get that degree. It doesn't stop when you get that job. It doesn't stop when you get your first promotion or your second promotion, or you become a senior manager in whatever organization you're in. Because those are just drone. Not that I'm trying to devalue, getting a good job and making a good living. I'm not, but there's a role for education beyond that, and that is to know ourselves better and to know how to become better.
One of our listeners puts in the comments that unfortunately his generation of millennials don't respect anything relative to the values, I guess, that we've talked about, or higher stages of human development, maybe another way to talk about it. But it's sad because I think oftentimes, well, two things that occur to me. One is the parents oftentimes thought the best thing they could do for their children is to have them get a good education, and had to suppress the reality, if they even were aware of it, that they were sending their children to the captors of our ancestors to be educated, and didn't think necessarily through what that would look like 50 years later. Now we've seen it and we see the outcomes that you've identified. But let's see if we can
Dr. Akbar just made
change. I'm going to get there. Hold up a second.
I was going to flashback.
Let's see if we can kind of take that anger that you might feel when people are disrespectful of your values or your beliefs, or what might be best for the uplifting of a fallen humanity, and take that energy and redirect it toward creating. And I know you're doing that, otherwise you wouldn't have been so much a full participant in our conversation this afternoon. So it's obvious you're committed to that kind of thing. But Dr. Akbar said, I found that the more I know, the less I know, as I realize how much more there is to. Yes, it's infinite knowledge. Knowledge is infinite. So nobody in the body gets all knowledge, but all of us are hopefully aspirants to get more knowledge. And along with the knowledge, we don't want just knowledge, we also want wisdom. And then in addition to the knowledge and wisdom, we also want understanding. So those kinds of values are so critical to us at this point in time. And all those three things are going to be a part of that process of pursuing a love of learning so that we can grow and grow and continue to grow as long as we're in the body.
Dr. Akbar's comment reminds me of a quotation I came across when I was in college, and that was that when you know enough to know how much you need to know, then you're ready.
I think we saw one of your scholars pop in, didn't we?
Yes, my baby. So he, the kids have a football game after, but he's been having a tough week last week. So one of our deans told him he can't play. So he was trying to apologize to the dean, but the dean responded in a less than favorable way. So he was trying to tell me about it. So I'm gonna go talk with the dean, on his behalf and see what we can do.
Oh, that's good. Good. Be an advocate for that child.
Yes, I love my babies. Oh, I'm so excited. Actually, everybody, I wanted to tell you about this project. Sorry, y'all. I think I got ADHD. So I have kids. We're going to be working on an EP, okay? That means a lot of them do music, but the goal of the album,
you've frozen
with regard to the birds of my
life. You're freezing and your message is choppy.
Yeah, would you mind repeating what you just said?
I'm just going to stop.
Oh, darn.
Are you typing it in?
Maybe ancestors are like, tell them, let it be a surprise. So I'm just going to zip it.
Yeah, the audio is still breaking up.
Okay. We didn't get it, JoJo. And now she's frozen.
Well, one of the things I do want to say is that we so appreciate the people who are listening in and participating in our conversation. There's so much because of the nature of what's going on in the world, globally, as well as nationally, as well as locally. And everybody who has an opportunity, please get out and vote tomorrow if it's in your state or wherever, because we know from history what happens on the local level and state level impacts the national level. So please, please, please encourage others to get out and let their voices be heard. We fought too hard to get the right to vote, not to vote. And I know a lot of people are very disheartened by what's happened, but it's not likely to get any better until we make it better. And Dr. Jonisha says she's going to share what she had planned to share another time because she's not able to get her system to work right now. I think she'll probably be back online. I'm not sure. But if she isn't, is there any last thoughts you'd like to share?
I'm still here, Nana London. I'm just off camera.
Oh, okay. Well, we hear you now. Do you want to share what it was?
No, I'm going to share a little bit later. I feel like that was ancestors telling me not to be too hasty and just pop out and show y'all once the project is ready.
But we have learned to listen to the ancestors.
Right. But I do see a comment on our Instagram that is a good place to end. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone said, we all need a healing. ABSI is uniquely positioned with your expertise and posture of concern to be a major part of our collective healing. Ashe, ashe.
Ashe.
Asheo. And we are trying to be a part of the collective healing that's needed. And we do know that to the extent there is to be a healing, we as the mothers and fathers of all human culture and civilization are going to have to take the lead as we always had. I'm reminded of Dr. Ben Joseph Yochanan, who talked about Al-Kibulan the Africans' name for their continent and their people. And Akubulan, we know now means mother of civilization. So if we can go back to that consciousness that our ancestors had when they understood themselves to be the mothers and fathers of all human culture and civilization, and we can draw upon the path that they left and laid out for us. And as we in the Association of Black Psychologists have moved to unearth that and make it real and relevant for contemporary times, then I think we have actually gone a long way to move the needle toward a just, sacred, sustainable world, which is, I think, a worthy endeavor for all humankind. So, absent any last thoughts, I guess we can. Oh, one quick thought. Is there a particular topic that our audience would like for us to address for our next Creating Zola Mondays? Because our planned sessions have been kind of thrown off, but this has gone so well today. If you can drop it in the chat, or you can email us or reach out to Dr. Jonisha and let her know what you'd like us to focus on or talk about. Harvey, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say we really do appreciate getting a chance to have these back and forth conversations with you from time to time, because we don't always get to do that. And we are continuing to learn. We're not pretending that we have all the answers. We think that, you know, the answers come out of discourse and us being able to collaborate with one another, collaborate with you on seeking bigger answers to these questions than we may have.
I see one suggestion is that we analyze the structure of AFDB. I'm not sure what AFDB is.
If someone wants to clarify for us what AFDB is, that could be helpful.
Well, you know, it's a collective. And again, just to reaffirm what's been said, particularly this dispensation of the so-called Aquarian age is a collective. It's about the collective. And as we bring all of our knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to the table and share it and discuss it, which is what we're hoping to do here, we will indeed achieve our goal. Oh, African Development Bank. Huh.
Will be another topic.
Well, we might need to bring in a special guest for that, because I don't know a whole lot about banking, but I do know as the African world begins to rise and reject the colonial administrators and the neocolonials and create their own economic system, that is got to be a good thing. And that's exactly, I see what it's being talked about with the alliance of the Sahel states, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Anything else before we go? Hearing nothing, I will say again, thank you for joining us. I look forward to the third Monday of the month when we'll be back here again. And peace, blessings, and may all things good, health, joy, love come your way.
Thank you all.
All right, family.